America has officially left Afghanistan. Last plane, wheels off the ground. Joe Biden promised no one would be left behind, no Americans left behind, but we left them behind. And with that, Joe Biden made history. It's Rob Nelson Live. Hey, I'm Rob Nelson. I used to host a show on Fox, and now I do a digital live stream called Rob Nelson Live. And my whole mission is to figure out how in this time of division we can find common ground.
Speech, and they're not allowed to do that anymore.
I understand what it's up.
They be focused on rebuilding California.
Oh, it's so true. Come on. This is where this gets real.
He says you're heading.
I wouldn't want to be black and driving in a car.
Right.
Point there, right? Some of what's in this music, you can't sanitize it. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the show. So much going on in the world. And I'm going to talk about Afghanistan again. I know I don't like to do the same topic over and over, but this is a bigger issue than just a passing thing. I mean, one, it's the longest war America's ever been in. Two, it was a chaotic departure. Three, once again, our political divide fractured, like mirror image of what happens if Republicans are in power, Democrats in power, both sides switch places. And four, I think it has a lasting impact for how America will be viewed in the world. And I think for what's going to happen in domestic politics. So this past weekend, we officially complete our withdrawal from Afghanistan. The 20-year war, the longest war in American history, comes to a close in a messy, chaotic, tragic, and fumbling way. And we've been following it for a couple of weeks as that mess unfolded. And as if it couldn't get any worse, from one chaotic event, from Kabul being taken over by the Taliban in record speed, 72 hours, to a hurried withdrawal from a civilian airport because we'd given up our Air Force bases, to a terrorist attack that killed more American servicemen and women than any other day in the Afghanistan war in the last decade, to finally a rushed, hurried departure to get the last planes off the ground and get out. President Biden made a promise. He promised that no Americans would be left behind. I'm not going partisan here, guys. I know you're going to think I am, but I'm not. I'll explain why. He promised no Americans would be left behind. And what did we do? We left Americans behind. We'll talk about that in a minute. We didn't really leave them behind. We're going to come get them. Okay, we'll get to that. We left Americans behind. We also left thousands of our partners behind. But the promise was no Americans left behind. In doing that, President Biden became the first American president to order his generals to leave Americans behind. Never happened in American history. Never. That's history making, not in a good way. There was a promise made. We will not leave till we've got every American who wants to get out. We're going to leave our allies behind, which is bad enough, but we're taking every citizen. And we didn't. The generals were instructed to leave with those people behind, and they carried out those instructions. So the shame falls on them too. Any one of those generals could have up and resigned. I don't know, you know history. You think General Patton would have been okay with that? World War II General Patton? He'd have been like, take my badge. I'm done. Take my stars. He ran into the government, into the civilian leadership many times. And ultimately it was like, I stand by my principles that I'm supposed to honor. You know, do you think General Mitchell, who's credited with the modern Air Force and helping us win World War II, would have left people behind? General Bradley? No. Those guys would have literally been, sir, I am resigning before I leave those people behind. Any one of our generals could have done that. Any one of them could have said, sir, Mr. President, with all due respect, we're not leaving people behind. If those are your orders, I am not going to fulfill them. Somebody else is going to get up here and leave our citizens behind. It's your call. It's not unconstitutional. It's not a crime. Although, don't get me started on, we'll impeach Trump for a phone call, whatever. He has a right to do it. You don't have to follow through with that order. You can step down, but they did. And in doing it, they are going to carry that every day. There are soldiers, men, women, vets all across this country, political left, right, center, who are furious that their commanders agreed to leave people behind. But we did. President Biden made a promise and he broke it. And it's not an insignificant promise. And it doesn't matter that it's 100, 200, although I'm talking to certain people who've spent years behind enemy lines in Afghanistan, in the CIA, in the military, and they say the number's actually way higher. But regardless, nobody's denying there are at least a few hundred Americans trapped. And I'm not even talking about the thousands of our partners yet. We left them behind. Why? Rush to get out, to look good, to clean the mess up quickly. That's not right. The message that sends, there's a reason why vets are furious, and not just vets. And I get it. If you're on the left, you don't want to give the right any more ammunition to throw at Biden. So you're going to kind of do your best to go, But privately, it wasn't okay. That wasn't right. We didn't have to put 30,000 troops back in to get those people out. We had to stay on the ground for a little bit longer. We had to bring in, and we did have special forces units in there, and bring in enough people to finish the extraction and say, we are leaving. We are leaving as soon as we get those couple hundred citizens. So let us get them and we'll be gone. Nothing the Taliban was going to do. Nothing they were going to do about that at all, except say, okay. That's how we could have dealt with this at the very end. But I want to back up because something happened that's really fascinating in this whole process. I'm calling it the new look Taliban, right? The Taliban has suddenly gone from being a terrorist organization that we invaded Afghanistan, debatable whether we should have ever done that, went into Afghanistan 20 years ago after bin Laden and 9/11 to go after Al-Qaeda. Again, argue whether we should have ever gone in, but we did. And that was the mission, right? Set that problem straight, clean up that mess, make it so it doesn't happen again. And the Taliban were our enemies for 20 years. We fought them. Thousands of soldiers lost their lives. Tens of thousands of Afghani citizens lost their lives. And suddenly the Taliban is like our partners. We're literally calling them partners. I get that we had to rely on them for certain things. They controlled the city due to our stupid military planning and follow through. But now we're calling them partners. And there's this whole pitch to say the Taliban are trying to be different. The Taliban are trying to change. The Taliban are hoping to be reformed so that they will get more acceptance in the international community because they're going to be an isolated government without it. First of all, that's BS. They won't be an isolated government because China and Russia will help them. China and Russia are salivating on this. Like a dog to get his kibble. They're ready to go. Because they see an opportunity. And the Taliban's playing a great line. We want to be different. We want to be different. Right message, right message. But are they being different? Well, look at what's already happening. You don't have to look very hard to see what the Taliban's already doing. Wall Street Journal had an article, just one example of dozens and dozens and dozens that you can find. They pointed out that there was a prominent news anchor in Kabul whose station was taken over. Had to stand with a bunch of Taliban soldiers behind him and read a formal message about how the government was going to be different and da-da-da-da. And then they left. And afterward, he went on social media and was like, it was terrifying. They took over. They ordered us what to say. Like, we're terrified. Like, we didn't, have a choice. Schools around the country that have girls are being told you can't go to school after 6th grade. And they're shutting down schools all over. Oh, that's the new Taliban. They took a prominent folk singer and executed him. Why? Because music that's not religious is not allowed under their edicts of their Islamic, extreme Islamic. I'm not knocking Islam. Their extreme Islamic interpretation of how they govern. Women are being told not to go on the streets. You can't go unaccompanied without a man. it's just the beginning. That's the baby stuff. That's not counting the brutal terror that they wreaked for 20 years and will continue to wreak. And I'm pissed at the way it's being covered. And I know I'm going to say Fox News is covering it right now, but I'll point out right now, Fox News would cover it differently if Trump was president. Both sides cover things in complete reverse when their guy's not in office. But the way much of the media is covering this, and I'll give credit to some who are, Washington Post is doing an amazing job actually reporting real journalism on this. A number of print publications are. But overall, most of the media, most of the broadcast media, cable news media, I mean, Anderson Cooper literally had a Danish journalist on last week who was in Afghanistan. And they showed video of the streets. And Anderson Cooper's softball question goes, you notice there aren't very many women out. First of all, I'm going, you notice there are no women in the videos you're showing? Not many? Like you can't find one. And the journalist says, yes, you know, this is true because women are scared of what happened back in the day with the old Taliban. They're not yet comfortable to realize whether this new Taliban will be different. Like, and Anderson Cooper just lets it go like, How about, well, why would they expect it to be different? What evidence is there that it has different? They're already not different. They're saying we're going to be different as they shut down schools for girls after 6th grade, as they order women not to go out of their house. You guys, a woman walks out of her house unaccompanied in Kabul. Any man, any random stranger could smack her on the head, kick her onto the ground, and people would just nod and walk away. Not even a crime. Why would you go out? It's already happening. Oh, it's the new Taliban. And this attempt to message the new Taliban is disgusting to me. It's utterly disgusting. I don't care what your politics are. I don't care if you don't want Biden to look bad. Then spin Biden good, but don't spin up the Taliban. It's just absurd. Like this whole messaging process of making the Taliban seem like they're trying to change based on what? The fact that they say it? Take off the rose-colored glasses. Quit acting like this isn't the USMO. It's war, Rob. Monkey Arms, I will not disagree with you on that. I 100% agree that this is the USMO, with one exception. The USMO is always to do what's in our national interest, 100%. And you can argue this is or isn't in our national interest. But it's not the duty of a free press that claims to be objective to parrot what the administration says. It wasn't the duty, and it was a disgrace that Fox parroted Trump, and it's an equal disgrace. I'm more upset that they're parroting Biden on the left in the media than that they criticized Trump. I always said they went harsh on Trump, and I think they did. But okay, fair enough. I don't expect them to do the same to Biden. But at least don't parrot the administration's BS when they're lying. And yes, it may be, Monkey Arms, our MO. But first of all, our MO isn't to leave citizens behind, but sure, to change the game, to do what's in our best interest. That's fine. There is no shortage of pointing out what the United States has done wrong in every military conflict. And horrendous things. I mean, don't get me started on interning the Japanese inside the U.S., We've done horrible things. We've done horrible things abroad. We've done horrible things here. Not my point. My point is the media parroting it. The media refusing to hold at least a comparable standard because they don't want to give the other side, in this case, the right, any ammunition. I mean, Anderson Cooper, in my mind, has just, lost all credibility with me. I'll give, there are reporters on CNN, there are anchors, Wolf Blitzer, Jake Tapper, who at least are doing a decent job of holding some standard of accountability. But Anderson Cooper sitting there and letting this Danish journalist make it sound like women are scared to go out on the streets because they're used to the old Taliban and haven't seen the new one yet? And no pushback? I'm sorry, Anderson Cooper. Don't ever speak to me about bullying again. Don't ever speak to me about people picking on LGBTQ people. Don't ever speak to me about Me Too. Don't ever speak to me ever. I don't want to hear you talk ever about those things if you don't have the guts to at least acknowledge that there's no new Taliban. And if there is, let's wait and see, because the Taliban we know is the worst friggin' sexual predator, monster, dehumanizing, misogynistic regime you're going to see. So don't tell me they're new. Oh, your serial rapist has got turned over a new leaf. Yeah, let me see that happen before you go ahead and say, well, maybe. It's disgusting. I'm pissed at that. Anyway, that's just one piece. I'm going to just address for a minute. I agree. I agree, Terry Bluff, the Taliban will not change. I'm not buying for a second that they're going to change. I am buying that they may try to put on a better face to the world because they literally are economically being suffocated right now, and they're trying to put a government in place, but they're not going to change. It's not about being better, different by our moral standards. Look at what they say. The Islamic code, according to them, by the way, I'm being very clear. I am not knocking Muslims. I am not knocking Islam. There are millions of Muslims who would be like, I don't buy into that extremism. But in terms of their Islamic state, the caliphate, their approach, what they say, they're very clear. They're very clear. They're like, oh, yeah, we're going to be different now. We're going to be different, but here's our guidelines. Their guidelines are no music that's not religious. Their guidelines are a woman should not be out in public without a man. A woman should not show certain parts of her body, meaning her face or her head. A woman should not be educated. You know, a woman is subjugated to the man. You know, that's not a maybe issue. A man can kick the crap out of a woman anytime he wants. That's not a maybe issue we're going to change. It's written in their view of what God wants. It ain't changing. New Taliban? Maybe they're going to appear to be a little more friendly to get Western support. And the minute they got China and Russia bankrolling them, that's going to go out the window too. And China and Russia don't care. They just want a footprint that we left behind. Good luck with that, by the way. But Biden's insistence that this had to happen this way, there was no choice. This is one that pisses me off. I get so tired of hearing. Oh, and by the way, before I go to this, Crafty, can you put up the graphic just to be clear that what we have done in leaving people behind? Just pop those two graphics up for me, Crafty. This is majority of interpreters, other U.S. visa applicants were left behind in Afghanistan. U.S. still doesn't have reliable data on who was evacuated from Afghanistan, according to a senior State Department official. And the second one, which is just sort of parroting that statement from the State Department, they've not only worked for us, they've worked with us. We remain keenly focused on getting them out safely. Okay. I just want to say, that's me pointing out, no one's even denying that we are leaving everybody else behind. We're leaving all the interpreters behind. For God's sakes, we're leaving the interpreter behind who got Biden out in 2018 when his helicopter went down. How's that for cruel irony? Got a picture of you there with Biden all smiley because you got him out and you left him behind? You know, how about you just even go, make sure you get that guy out. He saved my ass. He saved my ass 13 years ago. No shame. No, we're not getting those people out, right? We're not getting those people out. I'll get to that one more second. I want to just address this insistence that it had to happen this way because the narrative has become, we needed to leave Afghanistan. Okay, maybe, sure. And when we left, it was going to be chaotic. Okay, probably, sure. This had to happen this way. It didn't have to happen this way. It didn't have to be this chaotic. You don't have to be a military genius to figure that out. They didn't see the Taliban taking over as quickly as they took over. So you didn't plan for every contingency. You didn't plan for the most obvious thing you can plan for when you're military planning is what's the worst case? The worst case is the Taliban takes over really fast. Kabul falls to the Taliban, and we don't have anything to protect ourselves. That's a long shot at the time, they're thinking, but it's a possibility. So if you're going to plan against that possibility, what's the one thing you don't do? Well, just in case, let's keep our Air Force base, because then we have a base, right? And so if everything does go to hell in a handbag, we got an Air Force base. What general would all go, yeah, just get rid of the Air Force base? And Biden saying the generals all told him to do it, which first of all, you're the commander in chief, so they give you advice, you make the decision. So don't make it sound like it was unanimous consent. I'm sorry, you don't govern by committee, President Biden. You make the choice, you make the call. I don't care if they all told you A and you did it. If it was wrong, it's on you, not them. But I don't even buy that all the generals said that. My God, these aren't dumb people. You're going to leave your Air Force? You don't think anybody set up, Mr. President? I don't think it's a good idea to abandon our one Air Force base that's in Kabul before we have everybody out, because if something goes wrong, we got nothing. Of course somebody said that. Made a decision to do it because they wanted to get more troops out faster. Okay, decision made, wrong decision. Didn't have to happen this way. Could have happened a whole bunch of ways. Was it going to always be chaotic? Probably, but that's not what this is. This wasn't chaos. This was an utter disaster. We left ourselves trapped on a civilian airport, surrounded by our enemy with no control over anything. That didn't have to happen. We could have started evacuating people sooner. They know that. They said they made a choice not to because they didn't want to scare the Afghan government and make us think, okay, you made a choice. You chose not to evacuate people when you had control of the city, thinking you'd have control of the city longer, that the Afghan army trained would hold the city long enough for you to get everybody out. And they didn't, and you didn't plan for that contingency. We are mixing two things up. Leaving did not have to be this chaotic disaster. And Biden insisting it did is more annoying, more frustrating, more infuriating than him just saying, we called it wrong. I got it wrong. I thought we'd be okay. We weren't. It was my call. It was my bad. It's a disaster. I've done my best to fix it. I airlifted 100,000 people out. We didn't get everything we wanted. That's my fault. I will do better. Whoa, how about that? I'll respect that. I'll say you made a mistake and it's a bad one. And don't compound it by doubling down. I mean, God, what's most infuriating to me is one thing I never thought Biden would become is Trump light. And he's becoming Trump light, doubling down on his bad decisions, doubling down on how he knew, how he had everything planned, how it was all spent to be this way. There was no other choice. And it's everybody else's fault what didn't go wrong. Oh, sure, I'm in charge to take responsibility, but it's everybody else's fault. God, it's Trump light. It's disgusting. Right down to Biden literally, quote unquote, said this was an extraordinary success. I mean, if that doesn't sound like Trump, which part of extraordinary success was it? You managed to get 100,000 people out. Good for you. In a chaotic, disastrous mess that involved a terrorist attack that killed 13 soldiers, U.S. soldiers, and you left tens of thousands of our partners behind, our translators, people who followed us, even people who were part of the State Department there, the embassy, you left them all behind. That's not an extraordinary success. That's nearly an abject failure in which you managed to at least get most Americans out. And even that, you didn't finish that job. Extraordinary success? I literally felt like I was listening to Donald Trump and wanted to throw up because I was hated how Trump made everything like the best, the greatest, the success. It's like just your ego's just out of control. You know, just own it when you screw up. Biden couldn't do that. Couldn't do it. And again, you know, the double standard on the coverage. I'm going to just address it one more time because it's annoying. I want real journalism from both sides. And maybe I'm smoking crack that I think that could ever happen anymore, you know? But I just look at things. I watch Biden, you know? And by the way, I just am sorry. I do not see a leader here. I don't see a leader. Opening up a thing and saying people told me, instructed me who to ask, saying my generals all agreed to do this. So you're the leader, not the follower. No one should be telling you who to call on. No one should be telling you what to do and you go, well, they told me to do it, so I did it. Well, okay, you chose to listen to them. And by the way, you lied. They didn't all tell you that. There's no way all of those generals said, abandon our Air Force base before we get everybody out we want out, and then wheels up on the last place we control. No terrorist attack if they'd done that, because we'd control the Air Force base. But Biden, in the wake of this, just keeps making bad decisions. I mean, the whole checking the watch thing, I don't know if he was checking his watch at the dignified transfer thing. I watched that video. I'm like, I don't know, is he checking his watch or not? Again, you know, Fox News is going to blow that out of proportion. Although it was odd when asked about it, Press Secretary Jen Psaki didn't say he wasn't checking his watch. She just sort of skirted it, which made me go, huh. Made me remember a story back when I worked for Clinton when I was in law school, and Mike McCurry, who was the press secretary at the time, Clinton was in the middle of the impeachment thing. And I said to Mike one day, I said, Mike, how do you go out and lie every day for the president? You know, we all know what happened. How do you go out into that press briefing room and lie every day, cover up for President Clinton? And he looked at me and said, I don't lie, Rob. Think about it. I never say something that's a lie. I say the president said. So Jen Psaki doesn't do that. She lies. She doesn't say the president said. She makes the case for him. She makes the defense for him when she wants to, which again is a whole different issue. That's on her. That's her gonna have to live with that. But the whole thing with the soldiers' wives and families, I mean, if you watched anything, I don't care where you get the feed from, where you see the YouTube videos, these families were pissed, as they might have every right to be. And they let Biden know it, you know? And you hear multiple families saying, Biden spent all this time talking about his son and not listening to us. One woman said she got right up in his face. Excuse me. She got right up in his face and said, you know, you don't get to say, you know how I feel. And Biden apparently kind of like, and turned and kind of put his hand up and just sort of walked away. She said, it felt like he was dismissing me. I mean, I'm having Trump deja vu. That's a Trump move. It's a total Donald Trump move. Instead of going, all right, hit me hard. If you want to be angry at me, be angry at me. One, I made the decision. Two, you have every right to be. Don't turn and walk away. But the whole thing that he talked more about his son, and he did it on the national speech too. I know how you're feeling. I had a son, he served, and he died of cancer. Okay, first of all, it's not the same. You had a son who served, who subsequently years later died of cancer. You didn't have a son who served and died in battle, and there's a huge difference. I watched both. I've lost two brothers. I know what it's like to watch a parent lose a child. Yes, you know what it's like to lose a child, President Biden, and it's horrible. And you're grieving when you lose your son, and you understand the grief they're going through. But don't make it sound like it's the same thing. Your son served and then he died. Not of serving. He didn't go and get killed in battle. And that's what's a different issue. You lose your child in war, and you are confused and angry. And in this instance, these parents were angry at it, that it happened, and angry and upset at how it happened, and felt Biden had betrayed them by how we did this withdrawal. But he just made it about him. And that's what multiple families said, you know? And by the way, you don't see that on CNN. And that pisses me off, because had it been a Trump thing, you'd see it on CNN 48 hours straight. I remember when it happened with the Gold Star families. And I was so pissed at Trump. I was like, Jesus Christ, dude. Do you not have you don't have an empathy gene, do you? Do you not have the ability to like, just go, I don't care if you're furious at me right now. Go ahead, yell and scream at me. Secret Service, back off. They're not even going to hurt me. You want to slap me in the face? Slap me in the face. Like, get it out. Never thought I'd see it from Mr. Empathy Biden, except I never really thought Biden had that much empathy. It was sort of part of the pitch they were doing. Biden's empathetic. Really? Monkey Arms, I don't know if you're being facetious or not, but, oh, I get it, Monkey. I'm sure you're going to go relativist on me. And if you want to go there, go ahead, my friend. Listen, I'm not saying Biden is as bad as Trump. I said he's Trump-light. Yes, Trump went out of his way to disparage that mom. That was one of the most disgusting things he did in his presidency. I called him out for it then. Again, to be honest, I called Trump out for most things. I think he was an awful president in so many ways and an awful human being. But because Biden didn't go criticize her on Twitter at Monkey Arms, you're saying it's okay? I certainly didn't see him come out and say she had every right to say it. They just shield him. And the media not covering it again. If Trump, they would have covered it 48 hours straight. I get it. They're not going to do that. But how about you even cover it? And I'm not defending Fox News. Fox News runs these clips and never ran the ones with the Gold Star moms with Trump. Both sides do it. Don't get me wrong. But if you were the side that was pissed that it was being done during Trump, that the right protected him, and you're the side that claims you're the real journalist, you're the ones that are objective, suddenly you had tables turned where you had a situation where could you be objective, and they couldn't. They couldn't hold Biden to even half the standard they held Trump to. And it's not about comparing him to Trump. It's about doing the right thing. If you're going to cover angry Gold Star families, moms, wives, husbands who lost someone in battle, cover it no matter who the president is. Period. If you're going to hold someone to account for telling lies, hold whoever tells those lies to account. Joe Biden said, I will not leave till every American's out. He said it after being asked times at a press conference in the middle of this, and he said, we will not go till every American's out. And they did. That's a lie. And the saddest part is they knew it was a lie at the time. He was saying it. You could tell he was saying it, hoping that they did it, because it was increasingly unlikely they would. But it was a lie. So call the lie out. Call the lie for being a lie. Can't you do that? Okay, last piece on this. And this again, yes, I'm picking on President Biden because I'm sick of people propping him up for what he's not. He was never that empathetic. I've watched his career. I was in Washington 20 years ago. I watched who he was. No one ever thought of Biden as so empathetic. In fact, during the Anita Hill hearings, if you're old enough to remember when the Anita Hill hearings, the Clarence Thomas hearings where Anita Hill, who accused him of sexual misconduct, Biden shut her down. There was no empathy. Biden wasn't Mr. Empathetic. That was something they crafted and made up. I get it. That's what political parties do. You make up the best narrative for your person, your man, your woman, whoever. You put the best spin on them. The media doesn't have to play that spin. They choose to. But here's the thing. And this is where Biden becomes, to me, just the classic politician career flip-flopper. Forget about how incompetent he was. Forget about how bad he handled this. And again, it's on him, and he did. And it could have been handled differently. Could have been handled better. The buck stops here. He said the buck stops with me, and then the buck goes everywhere else. But let me play, and I'm sorry for those of you on the left who hate this, but I couldn't get these clips all together in time, so I've assembled it, cut it out of some Fox News stuff. But this is Biden talking then and now about, because now remember his whole position is I was always against us being in Afghanistan. I was always against us being nation building. I was always against us having a long war. I was, by the way. You can go back and check me. I said from the beginning, shouldn't go in. Once we were in, should get out, shouldn't stay. I know my history. You know, the Russians had a disastrous attempt before us in Afghanistan. The French before that. It's a failed thing. Don't go in and try a nation build. But Biden claims he was always against it, always just for the short-term objective. Let me show you Biden then, Biden now, back and forth. What Biden said now that he said he's always been about, and what Biden said then. Check this out.
Remember why we went to Afghanistan in the first place? Because we were attacked by Osama bin Laden and al-Qaeda.
Whatever we do in Afghanistan must be geared toward a long-term solution.
We did not go to Afghanistan to nation build.
As every military expert testified before our committee has noted, the battle against the Taliban is not going to be won with bullets and bombs alone. It's going to be won with roads, clinics, and schools.
I got in a big fight for a long time with the Pentagon because I strongly opposed the nation-building notion we set about.
We must prove to the world that we are the agents not of destruction, but of reconstruction.
I'm just saying, and you can say all politicians do it, but literally, back then it was about nation building, building roads, not just with bullets, long term, got to make a difference. Now, I've never been for that. Just hypocritical. I want to close this out with something. Monkey Arms made a comment. Monkey Arms, 13 deaths, 120,000 saved. Seems like very good economics. Yeah, Monkey Arms. Seriously, my friend? Seriously? Yes, both things. Okay, let's put it this way. I'm not saying it's not good that we got 120,000 people out. I've acknowledged that's a good thing. And was it extraordinary? Well, extraordinary, not an extraordinary success, but I will give you it was extraordinary that we got that many people out when we only had a civilian airport and not control of the city. 100%. Hats off. Salute. Cross your heart. Thank the men and women in the U.S. military who managed to pull that off. Both the people at the airport and the special ops teams that we didn't know about, who literally made it possible day and night to get 120,000 people out in a horrible scenario that they had no choice, that they got stuck in, not because it was not foreseeable, because we didn't plan for what was potentially foreseeable. I will say it again. No matter what you thought would happen, no matter how long you thought the Taliban would take to get to Kabul, you don't leave your Air Force base, Bagram Air Force Base. You don't leave that base and close it down before you've got every single person you want out. That's just basic. 5,000 prisoners got let out once we did that. Maybe the people who actually, maybe the ISIS-K people who actually were the terrorists. So I'm saying the men and women who made that happen, yes, Monkey Arms, unbelievable. The 13 deaths may seem like a small number to you, wouldn't seem small to you if it was someone you knew, if it was your family, but it's not just about that. It's not the number. It's that it never had to happen. never had to happen. We never had to have a terrorist attack happen. And we allowed that to happen by not planning properly. And again, mistakes happen, but then own them. Don't say it was all foreseeable and there was no way this was going to be clean. No way this wasn't going to be chaotic. And if you thought that, if you believe that for 1 second, Monkey Arms, then why did Joe Biden say at the very beginning, I promise you, you're not going to have a Saigon-like moment where Vietnam War, where you got helicopters lifting people off the roof of an embassy. That ain't going to happen. Well, I'm sorry, but it was a whole lot worse than people being lifted off the roof with helicopters. It was people hanging on planes, and it was a terrorist attack that killed 13 U.S. soldiers and they don't know, 60 to 80, 100, and injured another couple dozen U.S. soldiers and killed dozens and dozens of Afghani citizens. So again, those are not mutually exclusive. Good that we got 120,000 people out. Extraordinary effort and accomplishment on the part of the men and women in the U.S. military who did that. But that is no credit to President Biden, no credit to the Secretary of State, the Secretary of Defense. None at all. They botched this thing. And we could have gotten way more than 120 out if we'd done it right. And I'm not Monday morning quarterbacking. I'm not a military genius. It's pretty obvious. You plan for the worst when you're planning in a military scenario, and you certainly don't abandon your Air Force base. This was all about Biden wanting to get out quick, political statement, and thinking the American public didn't really care about Afghanistan anymore, so we can get out. They did the polling, they did the numbers, they made a crass political call, and they didn't make a smart, strategic military decision. And even then, Monkey Arms, when all was said and done, at that point, once that terrorist attack happened, or even before, in the midst of the chaos, totally appropriate to put more troops back down on the ground and go, hold on, we are leaving. We are putting troops back in, not for the next 5 years or 6 months. We're putting them in for the next 3 weeks till we extract everybody we want extracted. We will regain control. You think the Taliban would have gone crazy and tried to fight us? No way. They know they'd be decimated. They'd be like sitting ducks. We're coming in. Don't you shoot at us. Don't you? But they were worried. Biden was worried somebody might get shot. So instead, he got a terrorist attack. You take that risk when you're a military, when your military is trying to ensure and protect and do what it said. And this is where I will end this. No president has ever done this, left people behind. If you think that's not a stain, I don't know, on your conscience, to anyone out there in Monkey Arms, it doesn't bother you. And I'm not a militaristic guy. I never thought we should be in Afghanistan to start with. It doesn't bother you that we literally went in, said our withdrawal, said we will leave, we will take everyone with us, we will take every American with us, and certainly we made a promise and a commitment to our allies who put their lives in the line for us that we will get you out, that doesn't matter, that the world doesn't look at us and go, don't count on them. And why do you want that legacy if you're Biden? Well, he thought it wouldn't matter to people, but it does. And it matters to me, and I think it should matter to you. Forget what you think about the military, our MO. There is something about an honor and integrity. Forget about that. You want to talk about human lives. We made a commitment to tens of thousands of people who helped us that we would have their back if we needed to. And we left them. We left them to suffer, die, and live miserable lives if they managed to even stay alive. How is that okay? How is that acceptable? How is that not a stain on America's moral fabric? Whatever your politics, how is that not something we should be ashamed of, not defending as an extraordinary success? Thank God we got 120,000 people out. But God help us that we didn't get all those others out. All those people put their lives on the line for us. And by the way, I'll wrap it on this. We keep saying we'll get them out. They keep lying. How are we going to get them out? We wouldn't even stay around and keep a presence on the ground till we got them out, but we'll get them out now through diplomatic channels. We'll end with this. We closed our embassy. We pulled our embassy out. The Taliban asked us to keep the embassy there. Why didn't we keep it there? To make sure we could diplomatically get people out? Because they knew that that embassy would be in trouble, and those people, our embassy's personnel, would be at risk of getting killed and hurt. So they yanked the embassy. Great, but we'll get everybody out through diplomatic means. Not going to happen. It's a lie, and I'm sick of being lied to. Whether it's Trump, whether it's Biden, I'm tired of being lied to, and this will end when we have a president from either party who has the guts to actually tell us the truth and hold themselves accountable. Thanks for watching. It's Rob Nelson Live.